welcome to this session presented by FenixCommerce, titled officially, How Carrier Rate Shopping Can Reduce Your Cart Abandonment and Your Costs. And I think it'll be fun. And I want to, kind of as a precursor here, what we're going to be talking about today is literally how you can use carrier rate shopping in new ways that can really reduce your carrier spend 18%. It's pretty significant. All by using both pre-purchase and post-purchase carrier rate shopping techniques. Some of it using the FenixCommerce platform. We'll get more into it. But that kind of savings reduction is really available to you. And with that same capability, you can set up dynamic shipping costs and shipping options that your shoppers will really appreciate. And there's where you can affect their buyer behavior. We're going to get into that, how you can reduce cart abandonment and even increase conversions. Sometimes lifting conversions that we've seen with our clients, anywhere from 15 to 15% incremental lift and even more. So that's what we'll be covering today. And joining with me will be John Nordeen, who is a former CIO of Hudson Bay and Saks Fifth Avenue and Lord & Taylor. And prior to that was CIO of Eddie Bauer and also Kohl's. And at Kohl's, where he led merchandise planning, inventory allocation, and purchasing teams in addition to IT. And then our second speaker today joining me will also be Himanshu Parikh, who is a global CIO, CTO, and Chief Digital Officer, formerly with Foot Locker and now a board member and digital transformation leader. He is also a 2023 Top 50 CIO Award winner. So I'm really pleased to have both of these, industry experts and veterans joining me here today. So,
Good morning.
Thank you. Yep. And so let's get started. And first of all, Himanshu, can you briefly help us level set on, why do retailers today in this environment really need to be focused on perhaps new cost containment areas?
Thank you, Don. Great question. In general, retailers are always cost sensitive, but the key word, as you mentioned, is really in this environment. And if you really think about that, we are living in an environment where inflation is high, both on the goods and services side. What that does in turn is puts a lot of pressure from a cost perspective on consumers' wallet, as well as retailers' business operations. So this is the time where everybody is looking for that cost reduction levers that they can implement in their businesses, drive that cost savings, and then pass that cost savings to consumer to relieve that pressure. So from that perspective, this is very important focus for many retailers that I work with in the current time frame.
Okay. And how does that, do you think, lead you to maybe what the retailers are thinking about as it relates to their own customers? All right, I've got to cut costs, but obviously, I don't want to lose customers. So what does that mean in terms of what they got to do for their own customer journeys?
Yeah, great question. And I think focusing on the customer journeys, retailers need to really figure out what can they do in their control to alleviate the cost that they are passing on to the customer. And specifically what that means is that if you think about any digitally savvy retailer or omni-channel retailer, there are a bunch of cost drivers that play into the order economics, and especially in the current world where the most customer journeys are starting digitally. And if you look at the order economics for digital orders, then you will see that there are a bunch of cost drivers that put pressure on it. So retailers really need to be focusing on those cost drivers and see how they can use innovative technology or operations to drive that cost reductions.
Any particular cost in general, kind of, that would, sort of cover what we wanted to go over here today in this session? Any particular cost in general that you think we ought to be zeroing in on? Retail?
Yeah, relevant to today's session, if you look at the classic e-commerce funnel and you kind of, analyze where the customers drop off, one of the reasons why customers drop off is when customers are seeing the high shipping cost, right? Nobody wants to pay significant amount of money to have that order delivered to their doorstep. So you will see in your analytics that shipping cost is one of the major drivers why customers drop off and not complete the purchase. So very relevant to the topic today. I think that should be a number one focus, one of the number one focus areas for retailers to find how they can mitigate that risk.
Well, and that makes a lot of sense. And, even us here at Fenix, when we talk to more of our clients and prospects today, I mean, they're focusing more and more of, how can I reduce my carrier spend? They're trying to find new ways to reduce carrier spend. That's one reason why we're kind of here today. And so with that in mind, John, from your perspective, when we talk about carrier rate shopping as a way of attacking carrier spend, can you level set for this audience here what we mean by carrier rate shopping? And as I understand it, it's been around for a while, but it's still not widely used. And why is that?
Well, so carrier rate shopping refers to selecting the carrier with the lowest rate on any particular route. I think the mindset of retailers, and I know this was true for me when I had responsibility for purchasing at Kohl's, one of our key focuses there was to leverage our scale to get volume discounts. And we applied that across the board on virtually everything that we purchased. But actually the data that Fenix has now suggests that shipping costs may be an exception to that rule. And what drives that exception is that the rates vary from carrier to carrier to a great degree beyond perhaps what's intuitive. The variance that you're experiencing in your data is, in some cases as high as 40% on a given route. And what you found is the carrier rate shopping outperforms the volume discount negotiation by, often cases in double digits. So it's a huge opportunity for retailers to lower expense.
Then I would agree, because we've seen some of our clients have savings on when they're looking at individual carrier selections anywhere from 15 to 40%. And we'll talk a little bit more about that in some of the analysis that we've done.
Don, there's another opportunity here related to carrier rate shopping, and that is you can apply it earlier in the transaction and drive additional benefits other than the savings. And Himanshu was alluding to this. If you give the customer that information about shipping up front, you may be able to avoid cart abandonment and drive higher sales. And we'll talk more about that in a few minutes.
Mm-hmm. Does that speak a little bit to perhaps how the industry has traditionally thought about carrier rate shopping? Cost. But I think what you're alluding to is that there's another way of looking at it. Is that an accurate assessment maybe of historically how it's been viewed?
Yeah, I think it's right on. I mean, there are some marketing promotions that are done using shipping. They tend to be broad-based and not very targeted, like free shipping over $100. But they're not targeted to specific items, and it hasn't really been a core part of promotional strategy. And it's been managed as an expense, typically in the logistics area, and not really involved as far as the business side and marketing side and decision making and strategy regarding shipping.
Okay, so then let's talk a little bit more about that, because when you say, John, that there's that opportunity to bring that shipping information forward on the marketing side, the promotional side, and therefore the carrier activity, the carrier decisions that would support what kind of shipping information are provided front end, you're bringing that forward. What I hear is that that's also the opportunity for retailers to begin figuring out ways they can influence, buyer behavior. And, if you guys agree with that, and I think you do, a key aspect about buyer behavior is affecting cart abandonment. I'm either going to put this item in the cart or I'm not going to put it in the cart. And if I'm not going to put it in the cart, why? So if shipping costs are a big part of that decision of the shopper, I'm not going to buy this thing. The shipping cost is too high. Maybe I really like the item, but what can retailers really do about it? In your experience, what can retailers really do about that buyer behavior? Himanshu, what do you think?
Yeah, I'll take that, and we already touched briefly about it, but let me unpack this a little bit. When we talk about rate shopping, immediately people think about the traditional approach of using rate shopping based on volume that John alluded to earlier, and that is, if you think about the customer journey, that's in the fulfillment process. So you kind of miss the opportunity to influence customers' behavior, to your point. But with the new generation of rate shopping capabilities, there's an opportunity to think about how do you bring that forward into the upfront part of the customer journey pre-purchase. And that's where, the technology allows now to look at how do you configure that shipping cost communication in that customer journey such that you are not really using that traditional average cost across your total sum of customer in terms of the shipping cost, but you are really also giving the benefits to those customers who are closer to your shipping node. As a result, would have a much lower shipping cost and pass that on to that customer. Ultimately, that customer is going to then look at that shipping cost, and the propensity of that customer will be to complete the shopping behavior.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Okay. So that's how I think this capability really revolutionizes in terms of how you can utilize in the upfront customer journey.
John, you want to add to that?
Yeah, so I look at our current dominant shopping model, and it's basically show all the good stuff up front, right? Show the product, show the promotional price, customer puts it in the cart, and then on the back end, wham, you hit them with this bad news on how much shipping's going to be, right? It's not the way you would actually want to design it, right? But there were limitations to the technology to support how you would really want it to work. Okay, with Fenix, we can now design the process the way you would really want it to work from a customer standpoint. You don't have this, negative surprise at the end. You give the customer all the information they need: product information, promotional price information, shipping cost, shipping promotion, expected delivery date. You give them everything up front. So they feel empowered. When they make that decision, they're confident in the decision. There's no negative surprise on the back end. And so cart abandonment is much lower. One of the questions that, I tell Don I'm a skeptic regarding vendor claims, right? So right. I hear, okay, there's really good results on cart abandonment, but let's really talk about sales, because perhaps providing shipping cost up front would mean fewer items are put into the cart in the first place. And actually you have data that says even if there's a small impact there, it's smaller by far than the positive impact on cart abandonment. And so net, the result is the retailer drives sales and the customer is not frustrated. In fact, they're satisfied. So it's a win all the way around.
Okay. I love how I love how both of you frame that up. I mean, if ship costs are this big thing that lures out there, and traditionally it's been this, bad surprise, what can be done about it from a communication standpoint, but also how retailers can manage more dynamically what ship cost they're going to charge their customers. If I take that to the next logical step, are you saying then that retailers, and perhaps they have that ability to also dynamically manage the cost they themselves incur for shipping?
Yeah, absolutely. And there's a couple of aspects to this. One is with Fenix, you could manage shipping down to very granular levels, even to item level. So if you have some items where you don't want to invest any savings back in promotion, you can do that. And if you do have some items that you want to take those savings and invest them into offering lower priced shipping as a promotion, you can do that too. So it's a very dynamic process and gives lots of levers for the retailer to pull to drive both the top line and the bottom line.
Okay. Well, then let's go a little deeper. Let's go deeper into that, because I think, you both are touching on the key points here. So we talk about dynamic shipping and how does it work? How does the business know what to charge? Based on, so that they can, affect that behavior, but not, proverbially lose their shirt, maintain their margins on their shipping costs. How do they know? How these systems will be able to tell them that information?
Yeah, I'll take that.
Okay, go ahead.
The word dynamic is key here, right? And the idea here is using the carrier rate shopping data is available, but it's only 63% accurate, right? In terms of its accuracy. So idea here is to use Fenix dynamic shipping capability, which has the AI and ML based data that allows retailer to dynamically look at, for a particular customer and a zip code that the order is being shipped to, what would be the cost that destination would incur, and based upon that, allow the shipping cost to be configured. This approach yields about 93 to 95% accuracy. So retailers can be really confident in using this capability in that customer communication, and as a result, give all that cost savings that retailer is going to see, pass it on to the customer, and allow customer to purchase the merchandise that they want to purchase.
Okay. So then, right, in using the modeling, which is true, it's what Fenix offers, and using that artificial intelligence and modeling capability, you're going to be able to make a much more accurate decision about an individual carrier selection. Absolutely. John, what do you think in terms of how that process can then work? If you will, if the decision in the model is made, how does that decision really work through the process and translate into the action on the web store itself in front of that shopper?
Well, as I understand it, the system uses the location from the customer, so it knows where the item is to be shipped to, and it selects the best inventory location using some of the processes that Himanshu mentioned to fulfill that order, and then it calculates and rates the route. And there's a number or cost associated with it. That cost can get translated based on rules provided by the retailer into what charges would be applied to the actual order that the customer would pay. And again, the retailer has choices as to how to do that translation. They can just pass the costs along. They could upcharge it and make more money if they think that's the right thing to do on that particular transaction, or they could reduce it in the form of a shipping promotion to help drive the top line.
So what you're saying then is now retailers have more choice.
Yeah, as more levers to pull to drive sales and the bottom line as well.
Okay. All right. Then does that matter much, do you think? I guess intuitively I would say different types of retailers are going to pull different kinds of levers, right? So whether it's a full price retailer or an off price retailer, they may look at this cost differently. But is it fair to say they've got choices, they've got decisions that they can make regardless of their formats?
Yeah, if I were a full price retailer, very focused on my brand identity, I might not want to break price, but I could offer shipping promotions as an alternative to drive sales and still protect my brand identity and have the products at full price. For an off-price retailer or promotional retailer, there are days when you're not on promotion. And so those days you have high margins relatively because you're not on promotion, but you also have low sales associated with that because you're not on promotion. But shipping promotions could be, again, another way to drive sales on those particular products. And again, the granularity is key here because typically in a promotional retailer, in a given day, you're going to have some items on sale and some items off sale. And so you can target your promotions where they make sense and keep them off of your already promoted items, or for a special big day, combine them to make a really compelling offer.
Okay. Yeah, I could see that. And I think that's really what we're trying to do out there, is provide more choice around shipping and using it more strategically. And with that in mind, actually, Himanshu, I'd like to come back to something that you mentioned a few minutes ago about the value of the modeling in terms of being able to have more accurate services, carrier services to choose from. I know from some of the people in this audience right now, first of all, they're still contemplating what John said in the very beginning, that there's more to this than just your big volume discounts. You really may be leaving some money on the table and not making individual decisions. But there are also going to be some other people who are listening right now. They're saying, this sounds great, but you know what? You know how I can reduce my carrier spend? I just put more and more of my shipping options, shipping methods that I put out there on these lower cost hybrid services. I'm big enough. My volume discount is big enough. I can run it on, ground economy or short. So what do you say to retailers like that, with all respect to them, they think that that's a simpler, faster solution and gives them some big savings? What would you say to that sort of perception?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. I think two points here. Number one is the traditional solution, which is volume-based rate shopping, will give you the solution that has an approach of one size fits all, right? It's the same shipping cost for the same method, same carrier for everybody. So you have this impact on the customers who are closer to your shipping node, yet incurring higher shipping costs because that's an average cost that you have configured, right? So
right, they use average plus 2 card.
Right. With this solution, you can pass that benefit to those customers because they will incur a much smaller shipping cost compared to the customer who are farther in from the shipping node. So that's point number one. Point number two is it's really the story of end. You can drive the cost savings that we just talked about, but in addition to that, you can drive the conversion improvement with this approach because it allows the customer to look at that price through that communication, including estimated delivery date, and empower, to John's point earlier, right? Empowering customer really drives your conversion up. So I think it's the top line side as well that you can get improvement on. So that's why I think moving from a traditional solution to a solution like this really makes sense.
And this solution then being, like you say, based on AI modeling of all this data to really make these selections, a lot more, individualistic.
Correct. Fenix dynamic shipping capability, which is based upon artificial intelligence and ML models.
Right. Okay. So let me take this then in a slightly different direction, because this all sounds, great. And, we're out here talking about it a lot as well, too. But again, from your guys' perspective, for the benefit of this audience, this all sounds really cool. But how can technology leadership support the business in getting started on a project like this, or getting started and thinking about how they could bring it to their own, business? How could you guys support business in doing that?
Okay, I'll take this one. So there's multiple ways to get started. And my advice would be keep it simple and ramp up gradually. And here's the first thing that comes to mind is a company could focus on the back end savings. And if you did this, you would use rate shopping from Fenix at the individual level, but do it where you currently do it. So you wouldn't need to change your website as much. You wouldn't need to change your business processes as much, and you could realize savings. And those savings then could be reinvested in a more robust implementation where you move the shipping information forward in the process. And so you have that more ideal customer experience, and you gain those benefits of a drop in cart abandonment and an increase in sales. For retailers who are really interested in driving that top line and understanding how to make that work as quickly as possible, you could also start on the front end. And what that would look like would be you start with a few items. You do a lot of playing around to find out what promotions actually are the most compelling for the customer, what categories. You can select items from a variety of categories and see which ones work better. And so do a whole bunch of experimentation as part of a pilot. And then once you understand what the results are, where the opportunities are, then you can use that to determine your rollout strategy. And there's a number of different ways to roll it out. One obvious one would be just by ramping up items. You could do it geographically, a number of different ways, and each retailer can figure out what's best for them. There's a third way, and this may actually be the most compelling and easiest way because you really get numbers quickly, and that is you can provide your data to Fenix, and they will run a simulation and show you what the savings are from using Fenix carrier rate shopping compared to what your actual costs are today. And Don, you could provide more flesh on the bones for that point.
Yeah, thank you, John. Yes, you're right. We have built an engine, a simulation engine, and we've been running it for a number of clients. The next one actually has been Bombas. And just to give you an example of the benefits that they have seen, we ran 1 month of their historical data from earlier in the year. I think it was February. And they had approximately 183,000 shipments in that month. And we took that historical data, ran it through our engine, and out of those 183,000 shipments, 34.6%, as I look at my notes here, or 62,000 shipments would have had a better carrier selection from Fenix than what they actually used. It would have been cheaper, and it would have either met or beaten the delivery date of that actual shipment. So at 34% decisions being made by Fenix, that's translated into about 18% savings off of their actual carrier spend. And this is the calculated off the spend that they actually did, which includes their volume discounts. So when you think about the decisions that we're running through, 34% of the time are coming from Fenix, 18% less carrier cost. The average was $2.56 per average shipment of a carrier selection decision by Fenix. I mean, that's a pretty big, substantial savings for them. And that annualizes out to about $2 million in savings if you extrapolate from that month off of their carrier budget. And, they're pretty impressed with it. And now they've gone forward with starting a project like what we're talking about right here. So those are some excellent ways of getting started. And so I thank you for that, John. And, Himanshu, when we talked a little bit about this before, you had talked about some things sort of organizationally a little bit. And I wonder if you have kind of some advice in terms of getting started about, kind of the key groups that would typically be involved in a retailer of how to look at this.
Yeah, absolutely. But before I get into that, I just want to reflect back on the comment that you just made and share the numbers from Bombas. Those are some excellent numbers, right? Really demonstrates the point that if you move away from a traditional static approach to more dynamic approach, then you can actually really realize those savings opportunity. But getting into the question that you asked, how does retailer or technology leadership get started with something like this, right? So as we talk, John and I both discussed the opportunity being your bottom line cost savings opportunity as well as the top line conversion opportunity, right? That really allows technology leadership to partner with the head of supply chain from a cost savings perspective, as well as somebody like who owns the e-commerce whether it's a head of marketing or chief customer officer or P&L owner in the business, depending upon the retailer, that there could be different setup. But bringing those stakeholders together and approaching this with a joint partnership to drive the benefits both from the bottom line as well as top line is probably one way to go about. And I think it was very well received in the environment that we're living. You get the benefit of the savings, you get the benefit of the top line increase as well.
Oh, agree. That's a great way of kind of pulling together organization as well too. I think we all know how that can sometimes be a challenge in organizations. So a couple things here. I would like us to start wrapping up a little bit, but I also wanted to let the audience know if anybody has any questions for Himanshu or for John, by all means, type them in the chat window here, and either I or somebody in the background will see that, and we'll get your question out there. But as we think about wrapping up this discussion, I'd like each of you to take a few minutes, and what are the key takeaways for somebody in this audience, whether they're VP of e-commerce, somebody that's running operations, maybe somebody from merchandising, even finance or IT. What are either some key takeaways or some specific next steps that one of those individuals ought to be doing or ought to be thinking about? John, you want to start?
Yeah, I'll start. So, you never stop learning, even when your hair is fading and it's gray. And one of the things I've learned since connecting with Fenix is how the rates vary so significantly by carrier, and that creates the opportunity that we've discussed today. It's really kind of shocking how big those variances are and what opportunity that represents for retailers if they can fully leverage carrier rate shopping. The second thing is providing this dynamic shipping information to the customers early in their shopping journey will drive customer satisfaction. It will drive customer behavior in the form of greater sales and less cart abandonment. And it's a whole nother way to look at the promotional opportunity and profit opportunity that retailers have in the online channel using a more sophisticated approach to shipping.
I believe this is one of those capabilities where the effort to deploy something like this could be very small, especially what John discussed earlier. You have ability to start at very simple level, right? You can do A/B testing, you can run simulation, you can start with specific products and dip your toe in the water and experiment, right? So with a low hurdle in terms of the implementation and with the benefit of cost savings and the top line increase, I think this is one of the key priorities that I believe retailers should look at, especially in the current environment where there is a pressure on the top line and bottom line. And last but not least, I think it will be well received across the organization, marketing organizations, and chief supply chain officer as well. So I think it's a win-win situation on multiple fronts.
From listening to you, both of you, and our view out there in the market is, yesterday's carrier rate shopping was predominantly about on the fulfillment end at label printing, getting the best rate. But today's and certainly tomorrow's carrier rate shopping, which can be done today, is about not losing the value of that, but bringing it forward as well. You can do carrier rate shopping twice. You can do it pre-purchase and influence that behavior that we talked about, and bring that information forward into the shopper's journey. And then you can also do it again on the back end and take advantage of additional savings and efficiencies as we've seen in running our engine for our clients. But I think really, in my view, what wraps that up and what I think merchants, regardless of their specific role, what they can really benefit from and what they need is they need more visibility into their own data. It is their own data. And, we'd love it if you'd come talk to us here at Fenix about it. But even if you don't, if you think about, you've got so much data in your own operations, in your own business, you need more visibility to understand what is the behavior and what is that opportunity, what is that huge variance in rates that you may not even know is really out there. Dig into your data, and if you need help in getting more visibility into it, please come talk to us. My sincere thanks to you, John, and to you, Himanshu, so much for your time and for what you've been bringing forward here for everyone to understand. And I know I've learned a lot today. I hope that people listening in have also learned a lot from your insights. And it's been fun. I hope we can do it again. And speaking of which, I do want to tell everyone out here to please stay tuned. We will have another webinar coming up on how order routing can increase merchant profitability and improve the customer experience at the same time. And that session's coming soon on June 21st at 11:30 a.m. Pacific time. Hope you can join us there as well.